Good day. This is again your instructor for the subject Life and Works of Jose Rizal, SCSC 16. For this day, we will be tackling the last part of our sessions dedicated to the study of the life of our national hero. So, this lesson 2.4 is entitled The End of the Journey, the Start of the Fight. So, for this session, we will look into the circumstances of Rizal's death and the significance of the events that led to his death by firing squad. Again, I would like to remind everybody that this is a flexible learning material. This video discussion, you can bring this anywhere in your device if you will just download this, or if you have internet connection, so that in any time you can access this, you can watch the discussion to be clarified of our classes. And so for that, I would like to ask again your undivided attention so that we can finish this discussion. Okay, well, because Jose Rizal was or is considered to be our hero or the national hero, for most heroes, the eventual time of sacrifice must come. At least this is in the romantic period of viewing what a hero should be. No? So, because Rizal was a product of his own time, and he had circumstances which uh, led him to be killed and to sacrifice his own life, then there uh, comes a time when he will eventually die. So, for this lesson, we will tackle that area of his life. Uh, to deliver the land from the clutches of tyranny, the martyr must shed his blood. Just like those people in the stories that you hear about, Jose Rizal also shed his blood for the country. So in this lesson, we will focus. The focus will be on Rizal's exile in Dapitan and his execution. It is because when Rizal was exiled in Dapitan in Zamboanga, this was the last part of his life. So for that, we will look into what happened, what did he do in the Pitan, what were the significant parts of his life there, and we will try to learn from that. Okay? So, for this lesson, we will try to evaluate the importance of Rizal's life in the Pitan. Well, he will eventually die, but before he dies, let's study first what did he do in the Pitan, and how significant is the Pitan for him. We will also reflect on the issues and the relevance of his execution and death. And for that matter, by extension, we will also look into a number of his literary pieces, all excerpts, and we will try to see the thoughts behind them and evaluate how these pieces reflects his patriotism or his agony in his life. Okay. Now, before we go to the discussion proper, I would like to pose this very controversial question to you. So, in Philippine history, especially in the time of the revolution against the Spanish, there were two groups of people, no, who fought for a better Philippines. These were the revolutionaries who took up arms and went against the Spaniards through guns, blood, and gore. And there were also the reformists, no, who wanted to systematically um, free the Philippines. But, however, the reformists were not very keen on being independent. Perhaps because some of them viewed a positive side, no, to the Spanish being here in the Philippines. So there are clashes of ideologies. Now, my question to you that I would like to you to ponder about while we are discussing the last part of Rizal's life is that, was Rizal a revolutionary who wanted to fight and attain immediate independence for the Philippines, or was he a reformist who only hoped that the Philippines be recognized as a Spanish province? Is there a significant difference to those two things? Now, I already stated that Rizal is or is part of the reformist group. However, some scholars also asserts that Rizal can be a revolutionary because of his thoughts, especially that he shed his blood for his country, which not a lot of reformists did or can do. So, what do you think? No? So this is a question that is very relevant if we are tackling Philippine history, especially the time of the Spanish ousting in the Philippines. I leave that question to you. We'll go to the discussion proper. So before we go to his death, let's first look at his life in the countryside, in the Pitan in Zamboanga. Now, during Rizal's time, the Pitan was a sleepy town. This is somewhere in Zamboanga. It served as an outpost for the Spanish military in the Philippines. When you go to some parts of Zamboanga, there are people there who speak Chavacano. And it's this language is heavily influenced by Spanish, especially that some of the Spanish tourists that go to the areas where Chavacano is spoken could easily understand how the people speak their language. This is an evidence that there was heavy influence of the Spanish in those areas. No? So it's the Pitan served as an outpost for the military in the Philippines, no? The Spanish military in the Philippines. Captain Ricardo Carnicero was the head of the town when Rizal was exiled in the Pitan. Now, this head became Rizal's friend. Because of Rizal's intelligence and character, he was permitted to explore the place as long as he reported to the captain's office once in a week. So, the Spanish never really viewed, or for that matter, Captain Carnicero did not really view Rizal as, an a very dangerous man, since he was a man of letters. No, he was allowed, allowed to have his life in the Pitan. He was in exile, but he's not imprisoned. No? Um, so from July 17, 1892 to August of 1896, the Pitan became Rizal's home. To amuse himself, again, we have Rizal, not just the polyglot, not just the person who can speak a lot of languages, who can converse in different matters and in different subjects, who was also an athlete. No? So, the seeming curiosity of Rizal also went about when he was in the Pitan. He practiced his medicine along with his scientific and artistic pursuits. Now, we all know that Jose Rizal was very good in his art, in his philosophy and letters, and he was also a thinker, no, and a doer. He wrote a lot in his diary together with many essays, articles, and poems. He also established a school for boys and formed a cooperative to empower the Dapitan farmers. He studied Malay and other Philippine languages and eventually wrote a Tagalog grammar. So look at that brilliance. No, his mind is not really the kind of mind that would like to stay put. No, he wants to challenge himself. He's really curious about things, and he would like to produce something out of these ideas that he collects every time he has something. So he published this Tagalog grammar and gave it to Asiatic Society in London. He collected many specimens for his scientist scholar friends in Europe. As you know, in our previous lessons, he befriended a lot of scholars from Europe, especially those scholars who were studying the Philippines. He also became a teacher, a farmer, an engineer, a businessman, a carpenter, and an inventor. This he did when he was in the Pitan. So basically, when he was in the Pitan, he was cultivating all of these skills. No, he was cultivating these very hidden skills of his, and he developed that, and the Dapitan people benefited from it. So when on September 21, 1892, Rizal and Carnicero, who were friends now, won second prize in the lottery. So what did they do with the lottery prize? No, because Rizal was written to have this knack on games, no, games and luck. He was quite fond, not always fond, no. So he used a portion of his winnings from the lottery to buy land. So Rizal built his house near the seashore. He also constructed a school and a hospital in that area in Talisay near the Pitan. So in the picture you see that is one of the shrines, no, that was dedicated to Rizal in the Pitan. So because he had a very significant time in the Pitan, that's why we can think that his heroism was not only because he laid his life for uh, the nation, he died for the nation, but also because when he lived, a lot of people benefited from his genius. So maybe that's, for me, that's the greater thing about Jose Rizal, no? When he was alive, he was very much active, especially when it comes to those who were not educated. And I would just say this, that this was the pattern of the character Crisostomo Ibarra in the No Limit Tangere, no? The ideology of believing that education can free the people from the clutches of, well, ideology also, no, poverty and also oppression. So before Rizal was thinking about these ideologies, he was already practicing them, no? And of course, what he wrote in his novels, no, he had also applied it in his life, at least the ideologies. Okay, and because Rizal now was famous for his expertise in ophthalmology, the uh, specialization in medicine where the doctor would heal the eyes, no, perform examinations on the eyes, and eventually formulate cures to eye ailments. So that's ophthalmology. So a foreigner named George Stoffer sought him. This foreigner was suffering from an eye ailment and decided to travel from Hong Kong to Dapitan to see Rizal. So uh, in this uh, in this paragraph, you can see that at that time, specialistas, no, or people with specialization, especially in the scientific and in the medical field, were very much a rarity. And if you can see, no, even a certain foreigner who lives in Hong Kong is, or would like to go to the Philippines, would just have the effort to go to the Philippines, no? So you can see that Rizal was enjoying such status. So Topher was accompanied by his adopted daughter Josephine Bracken, who became Rizal's lover. So I would like to say something about the love lives of Jose Rizal. So there were many women who were linked to our hero. However, I did not venture to um, discuss all of them here except for Josephine Bracken, because Josephine Bracken is one of the significant people, or one of the significant women who Rizal had relationship with, because it is the one where he was almost successful in marrying. The other were brilliant also, brilliant women in their own rights, no? Uh, we can remember, if you just watch documentaries about Jose Rizal, there were a number which he fell in love with dearly. There were also women whom he just met, no? Just like Osei San in Japan, whom he wrote letters to. There is also a woman named Nelly Bosted, which he had an issue with Luna, no, Antonio Luna, or Juan Luna rather. um, it's part of history that chose Rizal in instead of the Luna one. Now, there's also Segunda Katigbak and Leonor Rivera, and all of these, I deem that they have had to have a separate session for them, no. So for these lessons that we have, I'll just indicate Josephine Bracken, because as I said, this lady was the one who was nearly married to Jose Rizal. So what happened? So the two vowed and enjoyed their love. No? They fell in love uh, in Jose's octagonal house. Jose had an octagonal house which also doubled as his clinic sometimes in the Pitan. However, they were denied marriage. Why? Because due to Rizal's refusal to retract his derogatory statements against the Catholic Church. As we know, Rizal was at this point. That's why he was captured and put in exile in the Pitan, because he had these derogatory statements, the statements or the kind of portrayal he had with the friars, no, the Spanish friars, in the novels No Limitang Hira and El Filibusterismo, caught the attention of the frailes. Now, the Catholic Church in the Philippines, especially in the Dominican order, did not really was not amused, no, by this, and they took Jose Rizal seriously, even denying him this privilege of marrying his beloved Josephine Bracken. So that created a stress, no, in Jose Rizal, not just in Jose Rizal but also to the lady Josephine Bracken. So it got real depressing, no. If you read histories on Josephine Bracken and Jose Rizal and their life in the Pitan, though they had this enjoyable moment because number one, they were in the Pitan. Rizal was having his life there. He had his school. He had his farm. He was an engineer. He was an inventor. He had everything. He was also offering uh, clinic, no, for the poor, no, and education for the little children. He had those things, but the Catholic Church denied him with the maybe the one of the highest, no, desires of his heart, to be married to his beloved Josephine Bracken. So that's about, no, their marriage with Josephine Bracken, and they had this. They continued their love, no, but it was really a time where it's not that good. It does that the atmosphere, especially when the Catholic Church was against that, no. So one evening, returning to Rizal and the movement, no, movement of nationalism and other movements for independence. So the other groups in the Philippines who were advocating for independence, especially the one which was slowly establishing itself, which is the Katipunan led by Andres Bonifacio, no, uh, brought somebody to Jose Rizal. Now, one evening, Dr. Pio Valenzuela visited Rizal in the guise of bringing him a patient in the Pitan. But then, Dr. Valenzuela reveals that he came under the command of Andres Bonifacio to seek Rizal's counsel. Now, for this moment, this one is for the history books, no, one of the significant moments where we can see Jose Rizal's thoughts on the revolution, no, and what he advised Aguinaldo to do. Now, this new group, this group of Andres Bonifacio, I was saying that advised Bonifacio, no? So, the Katipunan was a new group when this scene happened. Um, the Katipunan was inspired by the ideals of La Liga Filipina. If you can remember, in the previous session, we have discussed about the La Liga Filipina, which was a group established by Jose Rizal in the Philippines. No, this was a group which he established here because part of the discontent that he was he got from the groups who were in Europe, which were in Europe, no, the propagandist groups. He was not very at the later time he had disappointments because it refused to yield, results. Hindi nagkaroon ng konkretong mga kilos, no, upang maisulong yung mga objektiba ng kanilang grupo. So ang ginawa ni Jose Rizal, just review, ay pumunta siya ng Pilipinas at nagtatag siya ng La Liga Filipina. Now, when the La Liga Filipina was on and then it was heard about, Andres was very much inspired, and the group and the Katipunan was very much inspired by the ideals of it. Now, they were planning this armed revolution. No? At that time, they were planning the armed revolution, the time when Rizal was in the Pitan. Now, what was Rizal's response? Citing the lack of preparedness, the weapons, and the well-polished strategy, Rizal objected to the idea. However, the Katipunan continued to admire Rizal and his thoughts. We should note that Rizal was also influential in the armed revolutions because of his ideas. No? Now, that's the response that Dr. Pio Valenzuela get when the Katipunan would like to seek counsel from Jose Rizal. So, after that, despite his status, Rizal continued to seek liberty from the shackles of isolation. He pleaded to the Spanish government in the Philippines that he should be released. He sent letters to Governor General Ramon Blanco, the governor at the time, asking for a review of his case. No, if you can remember, this case was when he was captured with pamphlets which were satirizing the friars. No, and Governor Blanco was very much at Rizal's side. However, he was he was not with full power because, as you know, the friars in the friarocracy was really aiming for Rizal's execution. Now, Governor Blanco set a condition for Jose Rizal. No, it's a condition for his eventual freedom. So, the condition was that Jose Rizal was to volunteer as a surgeon for the Spanish army fighting the Cuban Revolution, because at that time there was a revolution in Cuba. So, Governor General Blanco said that, if you could be a surgeon, no, while there is a revolution in Cuba, then they can arrange, no, for a they can arrange for the freedom of Jose Rizal. Now, on July 30, 1896, his request was approved by Blanco. But the next day, the next day he left for Manila. And on September 3, 1896, he was bound for Barcelona. Okay? So, this was in preparation for his travel to Cuba na. So, unfortunately, upon arriving at the fort, Governor General Dispuhol shipped him back to Manila. So, there was an eventual shift of power, no, because Blanco was not very much the friars were not very much pleased with Blanco, no, and the administration replaced him. So Governor General Dispuhol shipped Rizal back to Manila when he came to Barcelona, and then he arrived here on November 3, 1896. He was immediately brought to Fort Santiago. Then that's the time that the end is near, no? Jose Rizal was accused of being the leading proponent of the revolution by spreading the ideas of rebellion. Now, you can see here the idea of, misquoting Jose Rizal and putting him in connection to the groups that he was really much not included. even if we see in their story with Dr. Pio Valenzuela, nakita natin na hindi talaga ganon ang kanyang koneksyon sa armed revolution na sinasabi. Ngunit, some scholars would say that because of the issue of La Liga Filipina, na hindi rin sinang-ayunan ng maraming nasa Spanish colonial administration, marami ang nagpataw sa kanya ng tawag nito, mga false information, no, nagpataw sa kanya na siya'y konektado sa armed revolution. However, it's only the ideas that were admired by those who are in the revolution, no? And he was also accused of founding suspicious organization. So marami nang ikinabit sa kanya. To prove his innocence, Rizal wrote a manifesto pleading to the revolutionaries not to continue with the uprising. So upang magkaroon ng innocence, no? Makita yung kanyang innocence na wala talaga siyang kasalanan, nagsulat pa nga siya ng isang manifesto na tumatawag sa mga kababayan nating nag-aalsa na wag nang ipatuloy ito. Mamaya titingnan natin ang isang babasahin natin ang manifestong yon at titingnan natin kung anong mga nakalagay doon. So unfortunately, despite the effort of Rizal's legal counsel, who was Lieutenant Luis Traviel de Andrade, the court found Rizal guilty and was sentenced to death. Governor General Camilo de Pulavieja decreed that Rizal would die by firing squad on December 30 at 7 in the morning. So that's why we commemorate the death of Jose Rizal every December 30. On his remaining days, Rizal composed his farewell poem, Mi Ultimo Adios, on November 29, 1896, a day before his execution. His mother and sisters visited him, in which Rizal gave away his things. So where was the poem? It was hidden on the gas lamp that he gave to his sister. Now, Rizal was executed in Bagong Bayan on December 30 in 1896. Some historians say that his last words were consummatum est. Now, where does this phrase consummatum est come from? It is a Latin phrase that Jesus Christ also uttered when he died on the cross. No? It means it is finished. Now, after Rizal died, there were still issues, no, about his death, because the Spanish were not, or hesitant, or did not give the body, no, to the family of Jose Rizal, and it became an issue, no, that they have to look for the body of Jose Rizal. Eventually, the family, it is claimed, no, that the family found the real body of the hero, and he was properly buried. So that's how gloom, no, he died. So if you think about that, he died under misquoted circumstances, no, misinformation can kill you. So that's very much the story of the life of Jose Rizal. However, he faced, no, the only thing that is good in that manner was that, courageous in that manner, was that Jose Rizal faced what could have been this misinformation against him, and he fought this on court. However, circumstances, because of Spanish repression, no, it led to his eventual death. Now, what was the influence of this death? If you know, along this time, the revolutions were very much at large. No? We have the group of Aguinaldo, we have the group of Bonifacio. These people, when they heard about this news, they were really disheartened. No? And it also gave precedence, no, to continue with the struggle, because there is not much, no, out of all the people, no, who would die under Spanish violence, one such brilliant mind, no, they were very disheartened, because one such brilliant mind, one ilustrado like Jose Rizal, was eventually killed, no, and was martyred. And I would like to note that Rizal was executed in Bagong Bayan. It also came full circle with his story with his brother Pasiano and the three priests of uh, Gomez, Burgos, and Zamora. So because they were also executed in Bagong Bayan. Now, it came full circle, and after the death of Jose Rizal, uprisings boomed, it strengthened, and the Filipinos was given a stronger reason to fight. Okay, now we will read Rizal's manifesto. What really did he say, no, about the accusations against him, and what did they say about the uprisings that were uh, stated? So Rizal was accused of having started armed revolts. No, the Spanish were saying that Rizal was a proponent of armed revolutions because the revolutionaries were shouting out his name. So that was the accusation against Rizal. Now, this further hardened the difficulties that Rizal faced under Spanish authorities, especially when he was pleading. No, if you remember on the previous slides, when he was pleading for his eventual release. No, he wrote a manifesto to certain Filipinos. Now we shall read the letters. No, now this is a manifesto to certain Filipinos. In Spanish, Manifesto a algunos Filipinos. So, in the letter, it is said, "Fellow countrymen, on my return from Spain, I learned that my name had been used as a war cry among those in armed revolt. The news was a painful surprise to me, but believing that everything was already over, I kept silent in the face of an accomplished fact beyond repair. Now I perceive rumors that disturbances continue, and in case some continue using my name in good or bad faith, in order to prevent this abuse and undeceive the unwary, I hasten to address you this line so that the truth may be known." So Rizal here is wanted to speak about a truth, no, his part of the truth. No? So since the beginning, when I heard of what was being planned, I opposed it and I fought it, and I demonstrated its absolute impossibility. So this is the truth, and those who had heard me are living. Probably he was talking about Dr. Pio Valenzuela. No, if you remember, he was stating to Valenzuela that the Filipinos were not ready for an armed revolution. Number one, because we lack the skills, we lack the technology, no, and the people also were not still on that discipline of having an armed revolution. Now, we continue. I was convinced that the idea was highly absurd and what was worse, fatal. No, nakamamatay. I did more. When later, despite my counsels, the uprising broke out, I offered spontaneously not only my services, but also my life, and even my name so that they might use them in the way they deem opportune. He's talking about the Spanish, no? In order to quench the rebellion. For convinced of the evils that it might bring, I considered myself happy if with any sacrifice I could forestall so mainly needless misfortunes. This is also in record. Fellow countrymen, I have given proofs as one who most want liberties for our country, and I continue wanting them. But I put as a premise that the education of the people, so that through education and work, they might have a personality of their own and make themselves worthy of them. So we can see here what Rizal was talking about. No? He knows the priorities that he would like to push forth, and that is the education of his fellow countrymen. We continue. In my writings, I have recommended study, civic virtues without which redemption is impossible. I have also written, and my words have been repeated, that reforms, in order to be fruitful, must come from above. That those that come from below are shaky, irregular, and insecure. What does he mean by below. So what he's talking here about is that reforms, no, in the form of reforming the government, as what them as the reformistas, yung mga objektiba nila sa propaganda movement, yun pa rin yung isinusulong ni Jose Rizal dito. So makikita natin sa underlined phrase na yan, yung mga reforma daw, sabi ni Jose Rizal, upang maging mabungahin, no? Mabungahin, mas fruitful, must come from above. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng above na ito, no? So we can say that this above would be a favor from the Spanish government itself, because that's what the reformistas were talking about. They were that's the objective they were hanging on to. So that those we continue that those that come from below are shaky, irregular, and insecure. He was basically saying that uh, if we go from below, or the grassroots, or in the place of the social structure, the urges, no, na mag-alsa, so it will be shaky, it will be irregular, it will be insecure. Yun yung sinasabi niya. Now, we continue. Nurtured in those ideas, I can't but condemn, and I do condemn that absurd, savage uprising plotted behind my back, that dishonors us Filipinos and discredits those who can intercede in our behalf. I abhor its criminal methods, and I reject any kind of participation in it, deploring with all the sorrow of my heart and the unwary that have allowed themselves to be deceived. Return then to your homes, and may God forgive those who have acted in bad faith. Now, I would like to indicate that Rizal wrote this manifesto in response, no, to the accusations given to him. Now, is this full proof that Jose Rizal was not keen on independence? Again, if we remember, we still have to see what was the result of his disappointment with the propaganda movement in Spain. We have to remember that Rizal was also very much inclined for action. What kind of action? He would wanted to have results. But in this sense, by reading this, well, he was killed, no? He was killed, and we didn't know what would happen if he was alive. What do you think? What do you think would have happened if he was not executed, no? Would it have been a good? Would it have left a good impression for Spain? Would it not make him not a hero? No. So those are the questions. This manifesto gives us his thoughts, no? But we also should, as I pointed out earlier, remember that this was in response of the accusations thrown at him. Now, what could have been, we do not know, no? The thing that we know, Rizal was executed by the Spanish, and because of that act, even if Rizal stated all of this, no, it eventually led to another thing, no? So it was ironic, no, that Rizal wanted just reforms, well, as what he said, but his death influenced the fervor of the revolutionaries to continue with their struggle. Okay. Now we look into another piece, no, that he wrote. This is a long poem also, Mi Retiro. But what we will do is we will read, no, an excerpt of this poem, and we'll try to see what was Rizal's feelings, no, when he was in the, what do you call this? When he was in the Pitan, no. It is in English. It's My Retreat. This is a long poem, no, but I just wanted to show you a glimpse of My Retreat in English form. Again, we cannot have the original Spanish here because, well, I cannot read that much straight in Spanish. So this is an excerpt of the poem Mi Retiro, or my repose or retire, no? So it reads, a line reads there, by the spreading beach where the suns are soft and fine, at the foot of the mount in its mantle of green. I have found a home in the pleasant groves confined, in the shady woods that peace and calmness divine, rest for the weary brain, and silence to my sorrow keen. So we can see here, no, because if you remember, Rizal had his house, no, near the shore, in the Pitan. So he was writing when he was in the Pitan. Now we can see that this part of the poem is full of imagery. We can feel, I think, what you feel here, and we can feel how he very much was thinking, he was very tranquil with his life in the Pitan. And it's very ironic and it's very lonely, no, that he had almost his peace in the Pitan. No, he had the opportunity to have a loving wife, no, um, but then, no, after the circumstances, he would still be accused and later be killed in Bagong Bayan. So we consider the spreading beach where the suns are soft and fine, this relaxing imagery, the green, no, the pleasant groves confined, the shady woods, peace and calmness divine, rest for the weary brain, and silence to my sorrow keen. So what sorrows are this? There are a lot of sorrows Rizal was, uh, experiencing in the Pitan at that time. So that's an excerpt of his poem. Now we also go to the poem which he read or he wrote, no, when it was the when he was near death. No, he will be executed. We will read an excerpt of Mi Ultimo Adios. In English, it's titled My Last Farewell. Now, in this excerpt, why we'll be reading this? Because we will see what is Rizal's thought about his heroism. The question here that we would like to answer is that what did Rizal really think about his contribution to our country? Did he really think that he would become a hero? He would become somebody who would be talked over even after centuries of his death? Let's hear from himself, no? So, uh, this is an excerpt. I think these are the last lines of Mi Ultimo Adios. No? And when in my grave, then by all forgotten, has not a cross nor stone to mark its place. Let men plow and with a spade scatter it, and before my ashes return to nothing, may they be the dust that carpets your fields. So he was not even, if sa isang mababaw na pagbasa, no, hindi niya sa unang tingin hindi niya pinapahalagahan talaga, no, yung kanyang kamatayan, no. Hindi nga niya tinitingnan kung ano ang kanyang contribution, no, sa kanyang inang bayan, no. Anong sinasabi niya dito? Let men plow with a spade and scatter it. So he was not talking about monuments, no. If one dies, eventually the important thing that someone, no, will be thinking about when one dies is his tomb or tombstone or lapida, no. But here we see the imagery, let men plow and with spade scatter it. Kung hindi man nyo makita ang aking libingan, sabi niya, when in my grave, then by all forgotten, wala nang marka, no? Walang cross, walang magmamarka sa kanyang kinalalagyan, has not a cross nor stone to mark its place. Kung mawala man, no? Let men plow and with spades scatter it. Pabayang ang mga magsasaka, no, ay bungkalin, no, gamit ang pala, at tsaka ito ay spread, scatter, no? And before my ashes return to nothing, may they be the dust that carpets your field. Now, I will try to look at the images, no? So, at the first two lines, he was just speaking about him being forgotten, no? There's not a remembrance of him. Again, we return to the theme of memory, no? When we were talking about the flowers of Heidelberg, we talked about the pieces, the piece having this theme of memory and experience, no? And here we still see, no, the theme of memory. Napaka mahalaga sa pagbabasa ng mga pieces ni Rizal, yung memory, no? Why ano ba ang kahalagahan nito? It's probably because of the Filipino, or the Filipino identity needs memory, no? On a higher reading, ang isang pagkakakilanlan ay kailangan ng, kung ikaw ay gusto mo ng makilala, kailangan mo ng memory, kailangan mo ng experience, kailangan mong ikaw ay matandaan ng tao. Ngunit sabi ni Rizal sa kanyang may Ultimo Adios, kung hindi man, kung magkataon mang hindi na ako matandaan, no? Bakit sir? Bakit sinabi mong hindi na siya matandaan? Kasi sabi niya dito, and when in my grave, then by all forgotten, has not a cross nor stone to mark its place. Kung wala nang magmamarka kung saan ako inilibing, kung saan ako hinimlay, no? Ibig sabihin, if I am forgotten, no, wala nang, hindi na nagdemand ba siya? Did he demand that he be remembered? No. He said, let men plow, and with a spade scatter it, and before my ashes return to nothing. Pabayaang ito'y bungkalin ng mga magsasaka. No? Now, napakagandang image kasi nakikita natin na pwedeng ang katawan ni Rizal ay nagiging pataba ng lupa. No? Nakikita natin sa pagtingin niya, ang katawan ni Rizal ay nagiging pataba ng lupa. Now, if the body represents, no, the memory of Jose Rizal, what does he want to do? He doesn't want him to be, memorialized with this so much, no, attention, so much monument, so much whatever. He wanted that his memory be a fertilizer of a new era. So for him, the more significant is the ideas, no? Ano ba yung magpapataba sa lupa? Ano ba yung magpapataba sa isang kinabukasan? No, ano ba yung mas magpapaganda sa kinabukasan? Ang pagkakakilanlan ba ni Rizal o yung mga ideya, no? O yung memory na meron siyang mga ideya na isiniwalat sa buong mundo, sa buong Pilipinas, no? Para sa kanya, para sa akin sa pagbasa natin ganito, kasi sinabi niyang let men plow, no, with the spade, scatter it before my ashes return to nothing. May they be the dust that carpets your fields. No? Pataba ng lupa. Ibig sabihin, hindi mahalaga sa kanya ang monumentong may pangalan niya. Ang mahalaga sa kanya ay yung isang kinabukasan kung saan ang lupa ay mataba. Anong ibig sabihin? Kung saan ang lupa, kung ano mang ibig sabihin yon, kung metaphorical man ito ng kinabukasan, ang kinabukasan ay mataba, mayabong, no? A progressive new future for the Philippines. So yun yung kanyang ipinapakita sa Ultimo Adios, yung mga ideya niyang pwedeng makapagpataba sa lupa. Bakit ideya lang? Wala namang sinabi na kunin mo yung katawan ko at ihimlay mo ng maayos. Ang sinabi niya, bahala na lang, no? Bahala na lang, hindi niyo ako makilala, basta maging pataba yung mga ideya ko sa lupaing bubungkalin ng bagong umaga. So yun, isang napakagandang stanza, no, para sa significance ni Jose Rizal at ng kanyang thoughts. And for me, also, the thoughts of Jose Rizal have really influenced, no, what we have become as a nation. Now, I would like to ask you, did the life of Rizal inspired you, or his thoughts inspired you, and how did it came to be? Huh? Okay, so much for that. In summary, we discussed the Rizal's life in Dapitan. We also examined Rizal's views about the Katipunan and the uprisings. No? We also discussed the circumstances surrounding the reason, the capture, and the eventual death of Jose Rizal, and examined an excerpt of Rizal's Manifesto to some countrymen. This is the one that we read with the addressing his fellow countrymen with the content of stopping the uprisings. And we also analyzed his feelings in Dapitan, no? through reading an excerpt of the poem Mi Retiro, and also we analyze an excerpt of Rizal's Mi Ultimo, Adios, or My Last Farewell. Okay, so I hope you have learned something. These are the references and the sources. Again, uh, I took much of the substance from the life and works of Jose Rizal from C&A Publishing, and also from our module. And we also have the life and works of Rizal by Balotol et al. And Engaging Jose Rizal by Balbin et al. Thank you very much for listening to this session, and I hope you have learned something from the life of Jose Rizal in our discussion. See you next meeting.